Bonelab has launched just now. It's out on Quest 2 and PC VR, and with all of the hype that's happened for this game, a lot of you out there are probably wondering, is it worth buying? As someone who was lucky enough to get a code, I've actually been getting to play this all week, but I couldn't talk to you about it until today. As this is an overview should you buy, I will keep it as spoiler free and just general overview as possible, but let's talk about it. Now, Bonelab is one of the most highly anticipated games ever on the Quest 2. After Boneworks was out on PC and was a hit, has a huge following, there's been tons of hype, tons, like maybe even ridiculous amounts of hype from people saying that it's gonna change the future of VR to saying it's gonna change everything. I always get really cautious when I see these kinds of hype around any new game, because as someone who's been in VR a long time, I've seen the hype trains and I've seen many games that have disappointed. So does Bonelab disappoint? Overall, I wanna say Bonelab is good. It's quite good. But as someone who's played Boneworks, who has played Half-Life Alyx, it definitely does not have as much wow factor as this would be to someone who never got to play those games. Now, we're specifically going to be talking about the Quest 2 because that's what I've been playing it on, standalone Quest 2, not on PC. And I've got to say, as far as Quest 2 goes, the game looks very good. There are details on it that you would not expect from the Quest 2. It's extremely immersive between the dark and bright environments. Some of the moments where you're moving around through them, it feels almost like you're in a laser tag arena where they have the black lights down, the glowing on the walls. Wow, this is really cool. There are some humongous environments that feel really big and really take you into the game. The game gives you a body that you can actually customize like your own body, or of course live out your fantasy living out through someone else's body, which can make it a lot more immersive. I've always found games that show your entire body are more immersive because looking down just seeing a set of floating hands is not the most immersive way to play a game. The game opens up to you, and what I mean by that is it drops you into the beginning, and as you go through each area, you learn more of the physics of the game, more of the abilities of the game, the puzzles get more difficult, and the game really feels like it's opening up to this world. That said, it does still feel very sandboxy. There's all these different areas once you get to the lab that you can go to and play around in. And because of that, the game does not feel like it has the most in-depth and aimed storyline. There is a story, but you have to really look around, interpret clues, and interpret the story for yourself. The game looks like it has a future. The mod menus that some of you asked about in Discord, it looks like we're gonna have all kinds of mod possibilities for this game. There are experimental features that look like they're gonna continue adding to them. This game does not seem like a game that's gonna be launched and people are gonna have 3 months of fun and leave it alone. This is a game that people are gonna be able to continue coming back to for a long time and getting more and more out of the game. Now, this uses Stress Level Zero's Marrow 1, their physics foundation, which was originally developed for Boneworks. Now, if you're someone who's never played Boneworks, it's gonna feel awkward to you at first when you get in. Your hands tend to get stuck on things through the physics. Picking something up that has weight and moving it feels weird because you don't feel the weight with your actual body, but you interpret the weight by the way your arms are struggling to lift the object up and move it. You might actually find, if you haven't played other games like that, it feels a little weird and a little wrong. It takes some getting used to at first. And because of that, the game at times may kind of feel glitchy. And that doesn't mean it is completely without glitches. I had a glitch that happened to me a couple times where my left hand just completely stopped being able to grab things and pick things up, which makes it very hard to operate a weapon that you need to be able to pull the mag out and put the mag in to operate. Bonelab is meant to not hold your hand. It's meant to let you experience the game, learn all about it yourself as you go. And it does a good job of that. It gives you enough to see what to do, but you're constantly asking yourself, what am I supposed to be working on? What do I do next to advance the game? It does not hold your hand. The game does seem to lean on the idea that a lot of its users have played Boneworks, which I feel like is an odd choice now that it's on Quest 2 standalone, because likely a lot of people never had it on PC, never got to play it. That's an odd choice. And with that said, an interesting thing about it is it also doesn't feel like it's leaps and bounds ahead of Boneworks. Boneworks was a very impressive game. The physics were impressive, and it feels like they've polished it up and they've added more to this, but this is not what I would say is the difference between like a Half-Life 1 and a Half-Life 2. It's almost like they just remade Boneworks in a much more polished format. There's more to do, there's more to see, but it's not a night and day difference to the game. Combat feels pretty good once you get used to it, but I was really having a struggle where with the pistol, I wanted to two-hand the pistol for the extra stability, and because the point you grab the pistol and the point you grab the mags is similar, I kept pulling out the mag instead of grabbing the actual gun. There's not a drop button that drops your mag out, you just pull mags out, and that can make it kind of tricky when you keep trying to grab your gun, you keep pulling the mag out when you need to shoot. There is a variety of weapons there, but it does feel like in the first few hours of the game, you're exposed to so many weapons that you may not unlock a lot more. It may not be a lot different for the rest of the game. There is more unlockables and things coming, so there is more once you get further into the game, but first impressions you'll get in, you'll think, oh wow, I've kind of seen it all already. The parkour is really cool, but it is hard to get used to. You're not going to be an expert at the parkour right away. You get in a game like Stride, and it feels like, oh, I'm just able to run through these levels and go for it. In Bonelab, you got to get used to how you climb objects and how you lift yourself up quickly or push yourself off an object. That said, the parkour actually I think was one of my favorite elements when I got to play levels that required more parkour. I actually preferred it over the puzzles. Now, even though I like puzzle games, I found some of the puzzles to be the most tedious part of the game. They didn't always feel like they were enriching the experience for me and felt like they were sometimes just burning my time more. So that really surprised me. The combat though, once you get used to the physics, feels phenomenal. And when you're running around, killing enemies, doing these really awesome kills, you just feel like a badass. And that paired with the soundtrack that they add to it, it feels like you can just play this game for hours on end, go after these enemies and do all these unique and cool fun kills. That part's fun, but after a while, the enemy variety can start to wear on you and start to feel like, okay, you wish there was more. I did think there was going to be more enemies than there were. The avatar switching offers something very unique to this game that I haven't seen in a lot of other games, and it allows you to do it so quickly during the game that it really makes you think, okay, how can I solve what I have to do here by changing my attributes? Someone who's more agile, someone who's taller, someone who can reach something. That is a really cool element that they added to the game, and probably the biggest change you feel from if you've played Boneworks before. With all of that said, is the game worth it to me? I'm going to say yes, but there is a few caveats. One, if you're thinking about buying this game, you need to have your VR legs. The game does a good job of running smoothly, but on the Quest 2, there was some frame drops. There is moments I could tell if you are someone who gets VR sick ever, this game could be way too intense for you. If you were someone who did play Boneworks and did not enjoy it, there is a small group of people who really weren't into Boneworks, didn't see the point, didn't feel like the game was a great VR game. Bonelab probably isn't going to change your mind on the franchise as a whole. So that would be a big consideration for me. If you were someone who didn't really care about it, maybe you're someone who waits for a sale. And one other caveat to whether or not you should buy it, if you are someone who needs a clear story, a clear goal all the time that you're heading towards, this also may not be a game for you. And I say that because I know my wife, Nat, she likes a game that has a direction that you're going towards, a goal that you're always after. And this game, there's a lot to interpret. She would probably get bored and not want to keep on going with the game because it's just not clear and obvious what the next goal is at each moment in the game. But for me personally, this game feels like it is going to continue to help mold the landscape of VR, going to have a lot of future behind it from the developer, and there's going to be a lot of people that absolutely love this game. So to me, I would say it was worth getting. It is a yes, get the game, but I also would say it's just not one of those games I absolutely recommend to everyone, like Super Hot VR or Beat Saber are games that I would say are a recommend. Everyone who owns VR should own those games. Bonelab is not a must own, but I would say it's a good game to go get and play. So with all that being said, I want to hear from you in the comments section. Did you get it today? I know a lot of people did. How much fun are you having? Is there some of you out there who aren't enjoying it as much as you thought, or are there some of you just avoiding it altogether because it's really not your kind of game? So thank you so much for coming out. I know this is a big one for all of us, so I want to hear about it from all of you out there. If you are interested in seeing a little more before you buy, there will be another video dropping here soon showing a lot of the actual gameplay on Quest 2 with the actual opening of the game and what it feels like to play the game and everything moving forward that way. That, of course, can contain potentially more spoilers, so I didn't put any of that here. So watch out for that, but I want to say thank you for coming out, and I will see you in another reality.